Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Spirit of Liberty broadcast. We appreciate you joining us today, and we are looking forward to a great discussion about the news media versus the church. And our discussions are always a lot of fun. We appreciate you joining us on Sunday mornings. It's good to have Brother Matt with us today. This is your first time on the program, correct? Second time on the program. And notice, looks a little bit different in here. Brother Matt did some painting in here last night, making it look much better. Appreciate that very much. But we do appreciate you joining us today. Make sure you spread the word about this. And we're going to have a great show. And just a little bit of preview, though, for the next weeks. So hopefully, I haven't got it confirmed yet, but next week we're planning on doing the movie premiere of The Atheist Religion by Brother Matt Powell. We're going to be doing that during our evening service. So I haven't got it confirmed yet, but I'm hoping we're going to be able to have Brother Matt on the show next Sunday morning. I thought that would be a lot of fun. I would kind of like to have a discussion with him about just dealing with all the hatred from the atheists, because I think he's doing a good job, reaching a lot of people in the atheist community. But most of what he gets back from them is just hate and insanity. And, that's got to get a little old dealing with that, because Matt Powell, he's a pretty cool guy. He keeps his cool. You don't see him like freaking out and stuff like that. And it's like, how do you remain poised and like that when you're dealing with rabid lunatics, which is what he deals with most of the time.
Just throwing out the most random thing you can possibly throw out. And
right.
Still not freak out at
and
it.
Just and I struggled myself dealing with arrogant people, and then when you have atheists are always so stinking arrogant, and even when you got guys like that Aaron Ra guy that looks like somebody found him in a homeless shelter, how is a guy like that arrogant? But yet he's arrogant.
You say homeless shelter, I say it's a basement dweller.
Basement dweller.
I'm thinking something straight out of a horror movie, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
reminds me of someone crawling up out of a well.
Yeah, but so that's got to be interesting. I think that would be a fun discussion. And then the week after that, Pastor Grayson Fritz is going to be here he's going to be here the night before for our Christmas dinner, and then preaching that Sunday. So we'll make sure we have him on the program that Sunday morning, and it'll be good for. What I think I want to talk with him about. Because most of these discussions we do, they're not always real serious. They're not always real deep doctrinally. They're for fun. I think it'd be fun to talk about churches in the South. The Southern culture in church. And everybody knows that's a subject near and dear to my heart. And so I thought it'd be fun talking with him about that. But and I don't want to just make fun. But at the same time, we have to admit, us folks up here in the North, we look at some of that stuff in the South and we're like, that's kind of weird. And Pastor Fritz, he's from the South. He doesn't act like that, but he does have a lot of good Southern one-liners, though, that, we've often talked about how they're better at just, laying down the insults and good one-liner. Any good one-liner I ever have, I stole from a Southern preacher. Just mark it down. I stole it from a Southern preacher. But anyway, let's go ahead and get on our subject for the day. But before we do that, before we do our preacher clip of the week too, let's talk a little yesterday's glory days. So you guys, I wasn't able to go. My wife just had a baby this week, and mother and baby doing well. They're at home today. Excited about Hannah Grace, and she's 4 days old now. I think today's day 4. So fourth day. So very, very excited there. But you guys went to Chicago and did some soul winning. Any stories from Chicago yesterday?
Chicago was a lot of fun. I love going out there. And the last time we went there, I think it was in July. We went to the Gage Park area, which was a more Hispanic area. This time we went to Inglewood and West Inglewood, kind of right on the border there. And we had 10 soul winners out. We got 10 people saved. I wore a mask the entire time. And Jason wore a mask the entire time. Even the McMurtry household.
Who got more people saved, mask wearers or non-mask wearers?
We did.
Overall.
Yeah.
Overall, the non-mask.
The mask wearers, Austin and Jason, they both wore a mask the entire time. They got 3 people saved. But me and Brother Brad, we did not wear a mask, and we had a total of 3 people saved. But who else was wearing a mask? That kind of like, was there somebody else that was wearing a
Hugo
mask?
wasn't. He got one. I wasn't. I got two. So I think think not wearing a mask was more beneficial.
Here's
in the long run.
Here's the thing, though. That's my opinion on it. I think that you're not going to be able to tell the people that would have been offended at you not wearing the mask. Because basically, you knock on their door,
Right.
they see you outside without a mask on. Some of these people are just like, I'm not going to open the door, because they think, well, they could be spreading coronavirus or whatever. So my thing is, we just wore it the whole time to just completely eliminate that entirely. And, I like, too, being out there and not just having to deal with other stupid issues while I'm out, like someone just kind of yelling at me at the door for no reason. And it's like, I'm so irritated with this stuff with the government anyways. And just I got irritated when they, buzz me on my phone like an Amber Alert telling me that we're in a dangerous situation. So I just wore it the whole time. That way, I wouldn't have some extra reinforcement of like, why are you out here without a mask on, But it was funny, one of the other things about it too was that we were on a street that pretty much separated, Inglewood to West Inglewood. It was like there was this little bridge. And Jason and I first went over to this park to see if we could catch people walking around. We knocked on houses over there. We got 2 people saved. Then we came back to the other side, and just for like an hour and a half, just like no one would talk to us at all. And then the last like 30 minutes, we went back over to the other side and got someone saved again. It's like we should have just stayed over there the whole time, But it was nice. I mean, the thing is, like, people talk about how these areas are really rough, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the show in terms of just the news media kind of controlling the people. Everyone was so nice to us out there. I didn't get a funny look one time. The people, when they got saved, were actually appreciative. Like, usually it's just kind of like, hey, you got saved, and, cool, see you later. But this was like, these people were thankful that we were there. They appreciated the fact that we came to it. That was my experience anyways. And, that always feels really good. When when you can tell they completely understand what you just did for them, they're thankful for it. But I had a great time. It was a lot of fun out there. So
yeah, 2 of the people that we got saved, Brad and I, it was on that street on the side of the bridge, because we took that street that was running along the bridge and just knocking at houses on that side of the street. And the one house, it was a girl that walked out, and she wanted to hear the gospel. I gave her the gospel, and like halfway through, her mom said, hey, you need to close that door. And she was just like, yeah. And I said, what, is there a problem? I didn't hear what the mom was saying, but she just walked out and said, no, she wanted me to close the door, but I really want to hear this. And that was encouraging to hear. Yeah. And she got saved. That was great. And then it was like the next house or so down, Brad knocked the door, and a little girl answered. He said, hey, is your mom here? She was. She's like, no, she's in the shower. She's like, okay, well, close the door, but hey, do you want to hear this real quick? Hey, do you want to go to heaven? And she got saved right there. Wow. And while the mom was in the shower, so close the door, make sure it doesn't look weird or anything, and here you go.
Nice. Weather was pretty good yesterday too. I was expecting it to be a lot colder when we planned this whole thing, but this has been a great November so far.
Yeah, now we closed out all our soul winning marathons, so now
now winter can come. So
yeah, but one other thing that happened too is I made the Facebook post as soon as we were done, and then we actually found a restaurant. They didn't let us dine in, but they let me walk in and get the food and everything. It was this chicken restaurant. Got like 24 chicken wings, got some fries, and we just went and sat at a park because it wasn't that cold outside. And these 4 kids see us from like a quarter of a mile away and just like yell out like, hey, you got chicken? They like run, like they're kind of like, it was funny. There was one kid on a bike that was kind of leading the race. Then all the rest of them were kind of like, moseying around like buzzards waiting whether or not they could get any. So this kid comes up and he's like, hey, can I have a chicken wing? We're like, go for it, man. And then all the rest of them just come running up for the chicken. And Brother Brad stepped out and tried to get them the gospel, and he stops them, and the oldest one, which wasn't the one that came up on the bike, but he just kind of like stepped away, and so it's just these 3 here, and he's like giving them the gospel, and they they were just not interested at all. They like kind of listened, and the youngest one was interested, but it was one of those situations where all the older kids didn't care and were kind of scoffing at us, so he was like trying to be cool and fit in. But no, those kids were totally just trying to scam us. They came over, they got the chicken, and then this guy pulls out this, foreign currency that's totally fake. Like, here, you can take this like currency exchange. Just give me a couple bucks for it. Like, totally trying to scam us, take advantage of us. But hey, they got the chicken, they got the gospel. The blood's off our hands now. It's their responsibility.
If you couldn't win them over with chicken. Yeah,
well, we only had 2 chicken wings left by the time they came. Yeah. So if we had a bunch more, then maybe.
It wasn't like they came and took our entire lunch, but
right.
Wow.
And I do have a yesterday's Glory Days story real quick. Just I don't know when I'll be back on, but Mike and I were on Halstead at a bus stop talking to a guy, and he was receptive, hearing the gospel, and was going through it, and we were getting towards the end, and I knew the bus had to be coming soon, so I had one eye on him and one eye down the street, and I saw the bus coming, and I got through my questions, and I asked him if he wanted to pray, and so I was keeping an eye on the bus, watching the bus come, but literally, like, as the bus was pulling up, we had finished the prayer, said congratulations and all of that, but literally was a total time crunch of watching that bus. Like, okay, I'm almost done with the prayer. It looks like it's stopping at that next block because it was on Halstead, so it was like every other block it was stopping. So worked out perfectly time wise. But
good. That's actually a good tip right there. Is be aware of what's like happening with the person you're talking to. If stuff's going on and you can tell you're in a crunch for time, make sure you realize that. I've seen some people where they're talking with stuff and there's like stuff going on in the background. You can tell they're distracted, and it's like, be sensitive of what's going on.
Right.
Otherwise, you're gonna lose an opportunity. And they'll spend 20 minutes convincing them they're a sinner when they had them or from the beginning. They already had that down. It's like, no, you don't have time for that. Yeah. So you got to be aware of those things. But anyway, well, that's good. So yesterday's Glory Day sounds like a great day. I wish I'd have been there. But, it was kind of the same thing in East St. Louis. People were very receptive, thankful for us to be there. Nobody told them they should be offended that white people are in their neighborhood.
East St. Louis is the most receptive place I've ever been in my life. And also probably the most dangerous place I've been. Literally, there was a house that was still smoking. It had just been burned down. There were like 5 empty shells sitting on the ground right where I was standing giving someone the gospel. So it's like, man, this might be their last chance before they get take another person. But I don't know. It was definitely East St. Louis. I was thinking about it. It makes perfect sense. You've got St. Louis, which is already really dangerous, and then you just combine that with the government of Illinois. It's like recipe for disaster, man.
Yeah. The St. Louis culture with the Illinois government. Yeah. It's in trouble. But so, all right, well, let's go ahead and get to the preaching clip of the week. And this one, let me make sure I get the info right. This is Pastor Charles Worley from the Providence Road Baptist Church in Maiden, North Carolina. Now, this was from back in 2012, but it surfaced again this week on IV Preacher Clips. I was reminded of it, and I wanted to play it because this goes along well with what we're going to be talking about, because this clip, and to those of you that are familiar with the new IMD and stuff, they're not going to think this is really that big of a deal, but this actually got a lot of attention and even got on the news, and it was events like this, it was only 8 years ago, that I think freaked a lot of Baptists out and made them start toning down their rhetoric against the homos because they didn't want the kind of backlash that he got. And so, Alex, if you're ready to go ahead and play that clip of Charles Worley.
The preacher featured on this clip is not necessarily endorsed by Pastor McMurtry or the Spirit of Liberty broadcast, nor does the preacher being featured necessarily endorse this broadcast or Pastor McMurtry. The makers of the Spirit of Liberty broadcast just heard this clip and thought, that's good preaching.
Of our president getting up and saying that it was all right for 2 women to marry or 2 men to marry. I tell you right now, I was disappointed bad. But I tell you right there, as sorry as you can get, the Bible's against it, God's against it, I'm against it, and if you've got any sense, you're against it. I figured a way to get rid of all the lesbians and queers, but I couldn't get it passed through Congress. Build a great, big, large fence, 150 or 100 mile long, put all the lesbians in there, fly over and drop some food. Do the same thing with the queers and the homosexuals. And have that fence electrified till they can't get out. Feed them. And you know what? In a few years, they'll die out. Do you know why? They can't reproduce. If a man ever has a young'un, praise God, he'll be the first one. All of these. You can just well, amen. I'm going to preach the hell out of all of us. Hey, I tell you right now, somebody said, who you going to vote for? I ain't going to vote for a baby killer and a homosexual lover.
All right. Hopefully we timed that up good.
Did you mean to say
but that was Pastor
I
Charles
did.
Worley from the Providence Road Baptist Church. And
God, how
I like
mercy.
that clip,
It makes
personally.
me puking
Now,
sick.
here's something I want to
Think
say about that. What he was saying right there
I don't even know what
was
the
not
pulpit
an
is.
original. I've heard a million preachers use that same illustration. They used to use it all the time. And the whole point of using that illustration is just making the point that they can't reproduce. You know, homos can't reproduce. And so if you did that, you know, they'd all die out because they're recruiters. That's how they get people. They recruit people. You know, that's why they molest people. They try to, you know, warp the mind of individuals so they will, you know, be like them. And that's ultimately how, you know, they not reproduce but recruit. So the thing is, you know, he said that. That's nothing that hundreds of Baptist preachers hadn't said a dozen times. My dad used to use that same illustration. Now, whenever I hear that one, I'm reminded, and I won't say the name of the preacher because I don't have the proof of him saying this, but I heard a preacher one time start to give that same illustration one time about putting them all on an island together, you know, and you thought he was going to talk about the whole they can't reproduce thing. Eventually they'll die out. But then, you know, instead of having a plane dropping food, it was a plane coming drop a nuke on it. You know, that was you know, that was the kind of stuff that they would talk about. But the thing is, he got hammered pretty good, and because of that, it freaked a lot of people out. And I think a lot of people try to be a lot more careful about what they say because they fear that negative news media attention. So before though, I do want to mention how many liked our disclaimer that we put at the beginning. Was that cool?
Fantastic.
All right.
It's pretty great.
And I got to put this disclaimer too, because this is for all the you know, police, the doctrinal police, the statement of faith police. I didn't look at this pastor's statement of faith or anything like that. I'm not going to investigate any of these people I feature. If I like the clip, I'm going to play it.
There's
okay?
no reason to even say that disclaimer. It's already covered.
Right, but I got to put another disclaimer out there though. I used the picture of Tony Hudson, you know, which will probably get me in trouble too by the same people. But I used the Tony Hudson picture too with the "That's Good Preaching" because that is a common thing that he, you know, when he's preaching, "That's good preaching." And I wanted on that thing where he says that good preaching, I wanted to have Tony Hudson's voice come up on there. But because IB Preacher Clips got, you know, shut down, my database of sound bites and things is kind of limited now. And so if anybody knows of a good clip of Tony Hudson out there yelling, "That's good preaching," I need that clip.
IFB preacher clips.
They don't, yeah. So
Well, it's IFB sermon clips now.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Right now, they don't have anything good. I found one where he kind of said it, but it was the way he said it wasn't like he normally does.
It wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah, it wasn't what I wanted.
I think they have all their stuff archived though. I think they just need to re-upload it.
Right.
So if you're listening,
Yeah.
we have another
Oh,
request.
trust me, they have ears everywhere. IFB Preacher Clips, they hear everything.
When they're cutting up Nathan Rager's podcast within like 30 minutes,
Oh, I
they're listening.
I'm telling you, there's a team working together there, and so I need the IFB Preacher Clip team to get me a good audio soundbite of Tony Hudson. I need a better picture too. That one's a good picture, but it's just blurry. The resolution's bad. I need a better picture of Tony Hudson looking like he's saying "That's good preaching."
Yeah.
So I want him to be the image of that. I did not get his permission for that Tony Hudson does not endorse the Spirit of Liberty broadcast with Tommy McMurtry, and Tommy McMurtry does not necessarily. In fact, Tommy McMurtry does not endorse Tony Hudson. But I do want to use that image and that soundbite. But anyway, so back to the news media. Now we're already going. The time goes by so fast when we're on here. I had a whole bunch of scriptures I wanted to go into about the news media. I put a link in the description of this for my sermon, Understanding the News Media. But last week we were talking about the whole thing too with COVID-19, the shutdown, and a lot of churches are worried about, negative media coverage, and because it can have a lot of effect in some churches. And I encourage people to listen to that message. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about on here are just, I guess, some scriptural examples. In that sermon, I go through all these, and I'm not going to go through them now, but throughout the book of Acts, whenever the church is doing things, whenever preaching is going on, we constantly see the common people hearing it gladly, receiving it well, but then the Jews stir up the multitudes. It was always the Jews that did it. And today, it's the same thing. You got the news media, it's all run by the Jews, and they are constantly stirring up multitudes. That's what they do. They're the ones that stir up the racial tension.
Yep.
They go find some guy that nobody even knows who he is, and they make him famous because he said something racist, and then they want to portray the whole world as racist. They get everybody all stirred up. They get everybody all angry, and that's what they've always done, and it's what they are doing today. And I get it. Not everybody in the news media, and at least not every face you see on there is Jewish, but the organizations are all run by the Jews, and you better believe they're picking what's getting out there, what's being broadcasted. Yep. But let me just read a few of these. So in Acts 13:49, it says, "The word of the Lord was published throughout all the region, but the Jews stirred up the devout and honorable women and the chief men of the city and raised persecution against Paul and Barnabas and expelled them out of their coasts." So they're preaching everywhere. The Jews get bent out of shape about it. They stir everybody up. Acts 14:1, "It came to pass in Iconium that they went both together to the synagogue of the Jews, and so spake that a great multitude both of the Jews and also of the Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and made their minds evil affected against the brethren." It was the Jews in Acts 6 that got everybody stirred up against Stephen and got him killed. We see in Acts 17, in Thessalonica, it was the Jews that stirred everybody up. In Acts 21, we see the Jews stirring everybody up. We see in John, whenever it came time to release a prisoner, they had Jesus or Barabbas. Well, the multitude definitely would have chosen Jesus, but the Jews, they got the multitude, they influenced them into crying out for Barabbas. And let me tell you something right now. If Biden did in fact win this election, it's because the Jews stirred everybody up to think Trump's a racist and that Biden's going to save the country and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they constantly tell everyone what to think. And here's the pathetic thing, is even a lot of people in churches today, they let these things affect them. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many people who'd been going to Charles Worley's church for years and loved him, after the news media gave their opinion on that man and on that church, I wonder how many people ended up leaving his church as a result of that, because they're so stupid they couldn't think for themselves and they let the news media think for them. And I'm telling you, I think one of the reasons a lot of pastors are so scared of negative news media is because obviously they think their people are dumb enough to be influenced by the news media.
Well, here's the trick. Most Americans are dumb enough to be influenced.
Exactly. They're right. Listen, pastors know what their congregations are like. So here's my question to the pastor. Okay, your congregation's that dumb, so why don't you help them?
Seriously.
Why don't you educate them? And if you go back and listen to that message, I think it was a little over 2 years ago I preached it. I mean, the whole reason I preached that sermon was to try to prepare our church in case we ever get, creamed by the news media and stuff. And we've never actually gotten like news coverage, but we've gotten a lot of negative online stuff thrown our way. It was a year later when we really got hammered online, and we didn't lose anybody as a result of it because our people were prepared for it. And and so it's not even so much that the people in their churches are just stupid, but they are in many cases just ignorant. They're not prepared, and people want to trust the sources that they go to, but somebody's got to remind them these people can't be trusted, but they're not ready. And so as a result of that, pastors, they're backing off. And and guys like Charles Worley, and he said even that rhetoric he's using, that, a lot of us would even say, well, that's not really extreme at all. Bible says, stone them, not put them on an island and feed them. I get that. Okay. But at the same time, what he said then was better than what's being said today, which is almost nothing. Now people, they're not talking about putting them on islands and getting them out of our sight. They're talking about, hey, how are we going to reach these people?
Bring them into the church.
Yeah, let's bring them into the church and just love them to death. So we think really bad things about them and about their sin. But if we talk about how much we love them, then maybe they will accept us. But you know what? They don't.
They never have, and they never will.
No, they will. And let me just tell all the Baptists out there, until you give them equal rights with normal people in your church, they will never leave you alone. If you will not ordain a homo, if you will not baptize, if you will not let them teach in the Sunday school, if you won't let them work in your nursery, you will be attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Just mark it down. I mean, you can compromise. Even Ben Shetler, who's one of the most homo-friendly guys I've ever seen in my life, he was. Did you guys ever watch that discussion or debate he did with that Shannon Queer lady?
I mean, the one where
she
strapped up
destroyed
to a
him
pole and lit on fire.
Yeah, dude. And the thing is, he was practically crying.
Oh yeah.
He was trying so hard to be loving. I mean, he hated that this woman, who is an atheist, she's not a homo, but she is super pro-homo. Yeah. She's a full-blown atheist, and you could just see his face the whole time. He's almost in tears that she is upset with his beliefs that are so weak. Yeah. That just because he thinks it's a sin to not even be a homo, but to commit to do homosexual acts. He was even like okay, talking about how he'd be okay with civil unions.
Yeah,
you can't compromise enough for these people. They are implacable.
There's no way.
So, but that's where the thing is, a lot of Baptists today are taking unbiblical positions when it comes to the homos, trying to avoid being hated, and it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's not going to work. So you might as well just get up and tell your people the truth.
Seriously. Why compromise, honestly? I mean, you can look at the Bible and see what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, it's not even hard to. It's not like it's an Old Testament that says this, but the New Testament doesn't. It's all over the New Testament too, specifically referencing back to the things that God said in the Old Testament in 2 Peter chapter 2 and in the book of Jude, and Jesus referencing things, and it's just all over the place. But, every single time that you compromise on something that the Bible just clearly says, you're going to be getting negative feedback, not only from people on the outside, but then you're also going to get negative feedback from people on the inside. Mm-hmm. Whenever you can accept that all the people on the outside are going to hate you no matter what, then you're going to be a lot more successful. You're not going to be worried so much about pleasing them. Mm-hmm. You're never going to be able to please the atheist community. You're never going to be able to please any of these different religions or any of these different activist groups. Just preach the Bible.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's the thing is, what everybody needs to decide, what every pastor just needs to decide is, are you going to preach with conviction on this, or are you going to compromise? Because I don't really believe, now some of the trendies I believe it, but most IFB preachers, I don't think they're comfortable with homo sitting in their service.
No, there's no way.
I don't think they want that.
10 years they were preaching stuff even close to what that guy preached in the sermon clip today, there's no way they've just wiped their minds clean of everything they said 10 years ago, and now they're just cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think any old IFB preacher wants two dudes that are married together to come sit in their service? Oh, we want to preach in the gospel and, hope they get saved and turn from that sin. I'm sorry. Okay, fine. Yeah, I get it. You're not convinced in the reprobate doctrine and stuff, but are you really comfortable with that? Because what if they want to keep coming and not get saved? And the thing is, most Baptists, they don't want them there. That's all there is to it. And so they have that. So the thing is, they have a policy that they are allowed to come because we want to preach to them, blah, 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 because that sounds good. But at the end of the day, they have that policy because they know it's very unlikely that they will. Mm-hmm. You know, they know that, but one of these days, one's just going to try, just to be stubborn, is going to come and, you know, take you up on that. And he's going to attend your church, and then he's going to start pushing. You know, he's going to want to stay for the potluck.
And he's going to be really faithful.
Yeah, he's going to be involved. He might even start giving his offering. He might want to sing in the choir. Yeah. You know, how far are you going to let this go?
Yeah. And I remembered even asking when I first got saved, I remember the whole issue of, you know, the homos came up, and I was talking with my mother-in-law, and they explained, you know, like it was just a common, you know, like, of course this is the way it is. They said something to me along the lines of, well, yeah, you know, we think that they can get saved, but we won't baptize them. We won't, you know, let them join the church. And I'm thinking, why? That doesn't even make sense. You know, if you think that you can get them saved, why don't you think that it's okay to do the whole rest of the Great Commission? Because deep down in their hearts, I think they are convinced of the reprobate doctrine. I think they know it. You just get so much negative feedback for saying it. My wife, who when I first tried to explain to her the reprobate doctrine, was vehemently against it. Told me a story, because that same conversation I asked about, well, why not? And just kind of explaining it. And she's like, well, there was one guy, I went to this like youth camp, and he was a homo, and he got saved, you know, but then after a while, he just kind of completely fell out of it, wanted nothing to do with it, and today he's an atheist and he hates God. Basically, like, I reject the reprobate doctrine, but I've never seen myself a homo get saved, and the one time there was, he just kind of rejected it entirely and left. Right.
Well, I heard, you know, Pastor Keith Gomez say one time, you know, because I don't think he doesn't take the position that they can't get saved, but he said in all of his years of ministry, he's never seen one turn from that. So it's like, you know, I mean, he's got a lot of years in this thing, and he hasn't even seen it. Maybe it's, you know, same reason you haven't seen pigs fly. That's what I think.
Hey, naturally, you have to get taught that it's okay, you know. You have to get taught to accept them. You have to get taught to that these people, you know, they can get saved. The natural person is appalled by it. Just instinctively, they don't want to be around it. They don't want it to be around them. And, like, the person that thinks that, well, they could get saved, but they're never going to be okay with it. They're never going to be okay with just getting too close with it, because it's still that instinctive feeling that, you know, this is wrong, there's something wrong with this person, but I have to be loving, I have to be a Christian. No, you don't. You were just taught that you have to, and it was wrong. You listen to your gut feeling on that one.
Right. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, you know, whenever you're thinking about your position on this, you know, I think a lot of people need to admit they're trying to be liked somewhat. But all you got to do is go find that video with Ben Shetler and Shannon Q, and you'll find out you can't compromise enough for these people. And once the news media decides they want to go after you, it doesn't take much. You know, a lot of times too, you know, they go looking for people to, you know, raise stink about. For example, you know, they had, I mean, it was the news media that literally went looking for a bakery that wouldn't bake a cake for homos. You know, it wasn't that some homo went in there and they'd been doing business with this person for years, and then all of a sudden when they found out it was for a gay wedding, they're like, no, we're done with you. No, they went looking for a place that would not serve them. It wasn't that they could not get service. And so the thing is, whatever agenda they're trying to push, they're going to find a church out there. And I think a lot of people know that too, and they don't want to be the one. So, you know, they're very quiet about their position.
Well, they're just not even quiet. They just don't even talk about it anymore.
Right.
It's not even a subject. Like, if I went to just some random fundamental Baptist church that I'd never heard of before, and I heard them preach against homos, I would be very surprised, honestly, because it just doesn't happen anymore.
Right. Yeah, so the thing is, why can't just, if all the Baptists were just open about it, and were straightforward about what they actually believe, then it'd be harder to make us look like weirdos.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because people try to act like our church is a cult because of our position. But the difference between us and them is we're just a little more vocal about it.
We're honest about what we believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these guys, like, how can you get up and say? Because, you know, anyone, especially like in reference to how big Northwest Bible Baptist is, you see a lot of things over a long period of time. I've been saved for like 5 years now. I've seen a lot of things just in 5 years in terms of adulterers, in terms of murderers, and like everything. No homos. How long has he even been pastoring that church?
I think like 35 years.
So like 35 years, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people there all the time.
They got over 1,000 people in that
Yeah.
church.
Yeah, there's never been one homo,
Mm-hmm.
you know, out of that whole period of time. You got that whole Chicago metro that you're working with. Not one homo. Just
Yeah,
be
how do
honest.
they not have their token homo?
Seriously,
That they got saved?
just be honest with yourselves.
Mhm.
You don't believe they can get saved. I mean, you just don't. So why constantly back down? Because this is the thing that frustrates me when I really start thinking about this issue, is that churches like ours get so much negative feedback. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of churches across the country that believe the exact same thing that we do, yet it feels like we're just standing on our own because no one else preaches this stuff. When the thing they don't realize is, if everybody preached this stuff, there would be no negative feedback because there wouldn't be a crazy outstander. We'd all be standing together. How in the world can fundamental Baptists not unite on the issue of homos? Like, we are scared of a bunch of little, you know, skinny jean wearing freaks out there. What is it about skinny jeans that are just so intimidating to Baptists? They get taken down by the trendies. You know, they get taken down by the homos. It's like, come on now. You paint yourself out to be this big, strong man preaching behind a pulpit. But a lot of times I'm starting to wonder, how strong are you? You seem like an insecure little girl.
Yeah.
You can't stand up to homos. You can't stand up to an ESV preaching Calvinist skinny jean wearing punk. I mean, good night.
It is.
This
And
is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think it's because I don't think it's so much they're scared of the homos. I think they're scared of the news media.
Yeah.
And what Baptists just need to do is they just need to get a hold of the fact that our world is getting very wicked and that there's fewer and fewer of us, you know, standing for truth and standing strong in these things. And the news media, they're going to hate you no matter what. So I think all you need to do is just prepare your congregation for it. You know, don't try to be liked by these people.
Yeah.
You know, some of these guys are getting all trying to hobnob with the politicians and stuff like that. Listen, no politician is going to touch our church with a 10-foot pole because it would hammer them.
Yep.
So, you know, but I'm not willing to make those compromises, you know, so I could get close with the politicians. I can't do it. It's just, it's too far gone there. And so they need to understand that even if they just, you know, whatever standards they do have, you know, they could move them to the left, you know, tomorrow, and it still won't be enough for these people. You will never be able to appease that crowd. You'll never be able to appease the homos until you are just like the Episcopal church, you know, when your leader is a lesbian or something.
Yeah.
You're not going to make these people happy. So just forget about it.
Yeah.
Just say, you know what? I'm going to look what the Bible says, and good night. This Bible is extreme compared to what the world says.
Yeah.
But it's what the Bible says.
Right.
And we're just going to have to do that and prove it to the people in your church from the scriptures, and then teach them that they shouldn't let the news media think for them.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at today. That's where a lot of churches are at. And you better brace yourself. You better prepare your people. We're going to be seeing more and more news stories about extremist, you know, churches where they're going to be called cults. And it's not just going to be new IFB churches, because even mainstream IFB that our crowd would call liberal are still seen as extremists. They are still offensive. When Ben Shetler is offensive,
Yeah.
then we've got a real problem.
Yeah.
I mean, just because Ben Shetler thinks it's a sin to commit a homosexual act, he's practically crying when talking to an atheist and just trying to make excuses for God. And she still acted like he was a terrible person for that. And you know what? He felt like a terrible person.
He did.
He was guilty.
He sat there at the end like, you brought up a lot of valid points. So I'm going to have to think about this for a while. It's like, why is an atheist woman in favor of the most, far left wicked things you can imagine, any kind of influence on your life?
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, I don't know. When I really sit and start to think about this stuff, it just makes me mad. These are people leading churches with a congregation that listens to them as a reliable source of information. They're dead wrong on so many key things. And it's things like that that are the reason that we're even sitting here having a discussion about the fact that homos are literally overtaking the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
If churches would all just stand up and say no, this wouldn't even be an issue right now. I mean, everybody. I'm not even talking about just churches that are saved, but it's like if Christians could just accept, any kind, like I'm talking Methodists, Catholics, Lutherans, whatever, just accept this is trash. This is what the Bible says on the issue. This would not be a problem in our country right now.
Right.
But no one can accept this stuff at all. And I don't think they ever will. I mean, it's gone. So my question is, now they're laying the foundations for pedophilia. Are you going to accept that? Or with like the preaching that we're hearing about homos right now, like love them, bring them in the church, give them a Sunday school class. Are you going to say that about pedophiles in 20, 30 years?
Hey,
I mean,
pretty
honestly,
soon.
It's not going to be 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, no, it won't. Pretty soon, the Catholic Church is going to be hammered for not letting lesbian women be a priest.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, they will never be satisfied.
Never.
So you might as well just, stick with the truth.
Just don't compromise at all.
Yeah,
you can't satisfy.
There's no reason to compromise in this area. None. But we're out of time. But anyway, just want to put that out there. Go watch that sermon. The link's in the description for this video. And, pastors that are out there, man, do not compromise on this subject. Just be open about it. Just prepare your people. Don't be scared of the news media. You're letting the fear of them stop you from reaching your potential and to reach as many people as you could. Don't let them influence you. This is exactly the same thing that was going on in the book of Acts. It's the Jews stirring up the multitudes. That's all there is to it. So you might as well just, if you're going to get in trouble, let it be for truth. And if whenever you're tempted to compromise, just go watch Ben Shetler. Unless you're willing to move to the left of him, you will never satisfy these people. You will always be a bad guy. So you might as well at least be a bad guy with a clear conscience.
And even then, you'll only be okay for a short time, and then that's the new left that you got to go to. That
Exactly. They're going to start saying everybody's got to experiment with homosexuality, so we can understand these people. I mean, it just, who knows? But either way, just stand strong. So I hope this was a blessing. Make sure you like and share, spread the word on this, and join us next week for the Spirit of Liberty broadcast. Thank you so much for watching.